This, there it goes again. With job types and clients, the classic clients you see this is internal costing, OH&S, safety, admin departments, the mining plant contractors. You're going, so what is it? Equipment hire lets you actually break all that in costing down. Tenement costing is a good one. People have costs per tenement and they want to break it down into that. R&D, same thing. I'm not actually having a work in progress environment. I'm just spending money and I want to track what's been spent each month. Progress costing. This is more about building a house type environment. If you're building a house, building a plant, you start to have progress claims. For a lot of us who've built a house, it's here's my deposit, here's my next payment when it gets to sort of plate height, here's when I get to roof height, here's when I get to lock up. You keep paying your progress claims. If you're actually on the other side of this and you're doing your accounting side of it, you're actually tracking all of the costs coming in that you're doing, and you're keeping a work in progress of those. You're wanting to do quotes for what the jobs are. You're wanting to do estimates of how much it's going to cost. You want to budget it by job. A couple of other things people start to think about is income in advance. Income in advance is the ability to take a deposit but not recognise it as being income. And it seems funny to say that you don't want to actually, you got a deposit but I haven't done any work, so I actually owe people that money and I need to recognise it. I need to also look at the percentage completed of things. And we start to get things like retentions coming through. How, as we do a job, is there a retention of monies that I still owe to my creditors or debtors? Some of the clients you start seeing this in is classically your mining service type organisations, construction, which as I said, building a house, normal building, normal equipment construction, that you're actually going to build a piece of gear and it's going to take multiple months to build. Service costing, do and charge invoicing. Am I allowed? Is when I'm fixing a car, classically, something like that. I do the work, or I'm a plumber. I do the work and it's done and I need to bill it immediately. How many hours do I spend? How many parts do I do? And when I buy parts in, I want to add a margin to it. Just putting it through. Simple sort of thing is I do want to keep track of how much work in progress I've got because I need to know how much I haven't yet billed for this month. I potentially want to quote the guy that client I've gone out there to do their plumbing. Yep, it's going to cost you $1,000 to put in that new tap. And I have to actually bring that together. I want to budget it by job. So really it's only budgeting by job. I'm not budgeting over a period of time. I'm worried about markups and I'm trying to track the individual time and materials I've done. Key reason I want to track time and materials is the biggest killer in most plumbing, accounting, service industries. It's what you actually give away for nothing. The storemen go in and grab, we see it with our IT department. They always go in and grab those blue cables and they disappear. And they might only be a $10 cable, but that might be a whole margin disappeared because they've given it away. They seem to disappear, and that's you're trying to track to make sure you get those billed and recovered. I've sort of talked about the areas that they're in, but they're in sort of service trades, electricians, air conditioners, plumbing. The time costing one, more about professional practice. You see this for your engineers, accountants, lawyers, architects. They do things slightly different. They're still doing it like a do and charge like you see with a plumber, but they don't track it by their actual costs. They track it by their charge out rates. And they want to track their work in progress by that. They still want to track all their individual time costs, and they're all about getting staff productivity up. How many hours has each person done? Anyone that's been in the accountancy area know about 6-minute units. And if you've ever been to a lawyer, they charge you in a lot quicker units than that. So you actually see that people wanted to see how many hours people have actually charged. So we're really starting to talk lawyers, accountants, consultants. Product costing. This is more manufacturing type processes. How do we process it and control a product? manufacturing the items. If I look at this and go food could be a production line. How long does it take me to actually cut something up, make it, cook it? And building, other examples, I have a client that builds pipe. So they need to actually do bill of materials to actually build the pipe. They need to quote the job. We need to track through what the work in progress is so we actually know how much cost we've incurred so far. The standard cost of items and varying what's going to go through. And we're starting to track parts in, parts out and doing the whole bill of materials process. If we have a look at some of these clients, we're really talking bombs and recipes. And the interesting thing is there's a word in this area called bombs, bill of materials. And you get people talk about bill of materials, but what is a bill of material? It could be a recipe to make a cake, and it's always the same. But other people say a bomb is I'm making a trailer, and the trailer's been made to design. So bill of materials can be a very broad word. I talk about, like, is it the job estimate, the takeoff, the design, and we all come back to building a house. It's really that design, it's the plan. And people then taking off and saying, what are the components we need and when are we going to get those components in? If we start having a look at some of the costs that go into a job, fairly simple things. We either have labour, materials or other stuff. Fairly simple sort of thing. Our labour is either our labour or other people's labour, being subcontractors. Materials are either stuff that we've taken out of our store or we've bought in from someone else. Overheads are either direct costs that we've used, which might be our machinery on a job, or it could be just admin overheads that we want to put against a job. All of these things come from different sources, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but just to give you an idea, is we can do a creditor's invoice. A creditor's invoice can be materials or labour. When I go to sell something, it's a debtor's invoice. And all of these things actually feed to job costing. So where I actually, if I zap back through my PowerPoint for a minute and come back to this drawing, if you look at all of those things going in there, you get a bit of a feeling that how costing can be so integrated to the system. Because you get debtors invoicing going in there, you can have a point of sale going to a job, you can have purchasing, requisitions, ordering, all sort of flowing through job costings. If I go back down through here and come back to there and go, once we've got there, what do we want to report out of a job? Things like work in progress, how much do we have owing on a job, or how much have we costed into a job and it's now become an asset for us? What's quoted, what's estimated, actual versus its budget, what did we quote versus what we think we should charge, how productive our staff been, when should we be doing things, when do we need to be ordering things, when do we need to get guys onto site? All of those things start to come into the job costing world. Whole series of different types of reports. Same thing, I'm not going to go through those in detail, but just to give you a bit of a feel for all of those things that can go into them. If we talk work in progress for a moment, work in progress is really the key to a good job costing system. If you're doing the classically MyOb QuickBooks type thing, they will actually go and do no work in progress. But if you're using something and you said, I'm building, doesn't matter what you're building a house, building a trailer, building a tank, there's a lot of costs go into build it up. If you haven't sold that thing and it's half built, is it an expense? Is it an asset? Can you sell it? Lots of questions. Most people, when you stop and think of it, a half-built tank is still an asset. So you actually need to treat it like an asset, treat it like stock in your system. The challenge that people get to is when they go to invoice something. If you've half built a house and you raise an invoice, how much cost does that invoice relate to it? And you start to have to think about that. And that's where people struggle with work in progress, is as I raise an invoice, and there's a whole series of accounting standards about this, which If you want to go to sleep, and even in the afternoon here, I can talk about those and you'll all nap. But literally that accounting standards says as I do an invoice,